My name is Toby Dudley-Smith, Head of Xtrackers coverage for UK and Ireland. Xtrackers is the ETF arm of DWS, one of the largest global asset managers headquartered in Germany. We have over 20 years experience in index replication, track over 300 benchmarks across a range of asset classes, equity, fixed income, money markets and commodities. The objective of the ETF is to replicate the performance of the sterling overnight index average, or the SONIA rate as it's more commonly known. How it does this is through tracking the selective SONIA daily total return index. And if you look historically, both the SONIA and the Bank of England or base rate have tracked one another very closely. The ETF can be thought of as a low-risk investment which generates an interest yield on your cash rate, which is very close to the Bank of England rate. Now, investors may be more familiar with the Bank of England rate, certainly anyone who has a mortgage will be, as the rate published by the Bank of England, which determines the interest rate paid to commercial banks that hold money with the Bank of England, whereas the SONIA rate represents the average interest rate at which banks pay to borrow sterling overnight from other financial institutions and institutional investors. It's calculated as the weighted average of all unsecured selling transactions that happens overnight. And essentially the Bank of England takes all this data from the banks that borrow from each other from the night before from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. and then publishes this rate at 9 a.m. the following day. Importantly, the SONIA is tied to the Bank of England rate, so as it moves up and down, the SONIA rate closely follows it. Now, how does this translate into an ETF? The ETF is just trying to replicate the underlying index. The index is just reflecting a daily rolled deposit earning the SONIA rate. And the way it does this is through a total return swap, a structure found in all synthetically replicated ETFs. And here the fund enters into an agreement with the swap counterparty who agrees to deliver the performance of the SONIA overnight daily rate to the fund so that the ETF essentially yields the current overnight rate minus the management fee. When you have cash sitting in your deposit or current account, often the interest rate you receive may be considerably lower than the Bank of England or base rate. So for example, the base rate is currently 4.5%, but many high street banks will be offering rates significantly lower than this. And what you find is high street banks can often be very slow to pass on interest rate hikes or actually very quick to lower the rates even ahead of a Bank of England cut. And those banks that do offer more attractive rates may do so, but with certain conditions attached, such as having a minimum investment amount or potentially applying penalties if you withdraw your money early. Now, with the sterling overnight ETF, you will receive the performance of the SONIA overnight daily rate, less the management fee, but having complete flexibility around how much to invest, no minimum or maximum investment amount cap, and the option to take your money out at any time. So it could offer a way to improve on your high street rate by potentially generating an additional yield on your cash. Now, in terms of risks, the SONIA rate does move both up and down depending on the Bank of England base rate. And so typically the overnight rate received by the fund will fall after any interest rate cut by the Bank of England. And in addition, unlike putting your money with a bank, you're not protected under the FSCS scheme. Also, as it's a synthetically replicated ETF, there is swap counterparty risk to be aware of. However, the fund is fully collateralized with government bonds to minimize the impact of any counterparty default. We do also offer equivalent overnight products both in euro and in dollars, tracking the Euro Overnight Index average, the EONIA as it's also known, and the overnight Fed funds rate respectively. In fact, the Euro product is actually one of the most actively traded fixed income ETFs across the whole of Europe. So for any investors looking to generate an additional yield on their euros or dollars, perhaps ahead of an upcoming holiday, this could certainly be worth a look. Yeah, aside from our overnight products, we have a pretty large range of income-targeted products, ranging from equity ETFs offering exposure to global and regional high dividend yielding companies, to fixed income funds where investors can get access to a broad range of solutions from global government bonds, regional investment grade corporates, to high yield bonds. And anyone looking for further details on any of these funds can find these on our Xtrackers website or indeed AJ Bell's.